I'm getting text messages at the same time. Hopefully, I have pushed all of the correct buttons so that everybody can see me in their respective places. We got TikTok over here, Instagram over here, and YouTube right here. Hopefully, I did all the buttons correctly. Instagram, what's up? You guys usually always come hang out with me when I do this kind of thing. I'm pretty new at doing it on YouTube altogether. And then on TikTok, I kind of come in every now and again, but they're not used to me over there. So they don't really come hang out with me. But I know that the people here on Instagram came to hang out. And so we came to talk about him. I saw it. Y'all know I'm not really good at looking at seeing things when it comes out. I'm always behind. Hey. Oh, thank you. So I have on a Care Bear shirt, Care Bear stare. Okay. Am I talking to anybody? The Care Bear stay the second Care Bear movie is a really fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. Okay. But today we're going to talk about him. So make sure you tell other people that we're here on your respective platforms. Hello, hello. Things are in the way on YouTube, but I'm trying. I don't have a moderator, y'all. It's just me. It's just me. I am currently building a new website, which is what's taking up most of my time. I am an actual, like, full on, I'm not going to call myself a solopreneur because I have two contractors, two story experts who most of you guys may have worked with before. They are kind of like the bread and butter. They help me to make this thing go round because if you know, as an entrepreneur, as soon as you start that business, you're not going to do the thing that you started the business to do. You're going to spend all of your time running the business. You're not going to get to spend all of your time reading the screenplays and working with people because what am I doing? Building a website. What am I doing? Going live. What am I doing? Making social media posts all day long, right? That's what my life is. So anyway, because of that, I don't usually see things when it comes out. I don't get to make it to the movies. I usually see things once it makes it to my TV screen. And by then, it's no longer a trending topic. So I am trying to get better. Bear with me, trying to get better at being able to talk about the stuff when it comes out. So I have all my notes. Okay. I wish I could turn my camera around for everybody so y'all can see them, but that's too much technology. Okay. I'm not going to be able to do it. Who knows what I'll start showing y'all in this in my house. So I'm not going to try to do that. But all of my notes are right here. And I don't, let's see. It's only like 2 pages worth of notes. I know I was getting on the people's nerves in the movie theater because I was pulling out my phone every 2 seconds. But like I go to the movies with a blanket. So I had a blanket over me and then I kept trying to like look under the blanket so that the light wouldn't get on people's nerves. You know what I'm saying? But sorry to the people in the theater. Hey, Nisha. Hey, Boss Certified. Hey, New Harlem Renaissance Productions. Love your energy. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So shall we go ahead and get into it? Y'all let people know that we're here talking about him. And let's start with the facts. From what I understand, and don't quote me on this, I might have to go back and refilm this part. So I didn't feel like making this video yesterday after I saw the movie when things were more fresh on my mind. I just didn't feel like it. And I was like, you know what? Let's go live. We'll do it live. And then I'll have my digital editor, cut it up into a review that can go online. So I'm not going to try to butcher. Let me just bring it up. I'm going to bring up the writers' names because I don't want to butcher their names. As I give them to you. I like to give respect to writers. That's what we do around here. We give writers respect. Him, movie, writers. All right, here we go. So, from what I understand, Zachary Akers and Skip Bronke wrote a movie called GOAT. The blacklist, I believe, was associated in some kind of way. So I don't know if it was on the blacklist or whatever, but again, that's what I read. You know what? Let's just look it up again right here. Y'all are here. Y'all want to know. GOAT blacklist him movie. Let's see what it brings up. Let's see. Yes, I got that correct. All right. So their original screenplay called GOAT was on the 2022 blacklist. Okay. And from there, it ended up going into like a little buying battle. That's what we all want, right? We all want to write a script that's good enough that people start to fight over it. That's what we want. And supposedly, people were fighting over this script. And Jordan Peele's company, Monkey Paw, won. Now, Jordan Peele had seen Justin. Oh, thank you, JD. It was number 13 on the blacklist in 2022. Jordan Peele had seen Justin Tipping's earlier film. Somebody remind me of the name of it. Starts with an S. They saw that earlier film and he really liked it. And so they had a general meeting, which just means a get to know you. So for those of you who have never had a general meeting, it's just to get to know you, right? It's not a time to pitch or anything like that. It's just to go, hey, this is who I am. This is who you are. This is what we're looking for. This is the kind of stuff we work on. This is the kind of stuff I work on. Maybe there's some synergy there. And then thank you, Chantel, kicks. In my mind, I was saying skips. Kicks, thank you. So they had a general meeting and they kind of hit it off. They liked each other. So when Jordan Peele got the script for GOAT, he said to himself, this is the opportunity for Justin Tipping to direct, which means Justin Tipping came onto this project to direct. Before then, he likely was a writer-director, right, for Kicks. And so what I tell my clients often, and I'm going to say it again here, is that when you are a writer-director, you are almost often and always writing and then directing your own stuff. Okay. Which means it's in your mind. The story is in your mind. How you put it on the page may or may not have mattered because you are also going to be the person who gets to visually put it out there, right? It is a totally different skill set to do that with someone else's work. So I suggest that if you are a writer director, but you want to work in Hollywood, most of the jobs you're going to get off the bat are going to be directing other people's stuff or even writing other people's stuff. And the only way you can learn how to do that is to practice it, right? And so Justin Tipping is a co-writer on this script because likely as the director, he got an opportunity to give notes to take a pass on the script, right? So he didn't just give notes to those writers and then they inputted. He actually wrote, which means he likely wrote at least 30%, 33% of this script in order to get a writing credit on it. Okay. Directors will often take a pass on a script. If not, they're definitely going to give notes, right? Because again, now once that screenplay has been purchased and it's now in the hands of that production company, that studio, that network, whoever it is, when that director comes in, they're going to want to put their creative juice all over that thing, right? Like that's what they're going to want to do. So they will either do that by giving notes to the writer or giving notes to whichever writer is currently on the project, because most people get rewritten here. That's the name of the game, right? So you may have been the original writer, but they will bring in other people who will write who will handle the notes, who will do the revisions, who will do the punch-ups, whatever it is, right? And the director will be one of those people who gets to give notes, or if they are a writing director, they get to take a pass. So Justin Tipping took a pass that was big enough for him to have a writing credit. All right, so that's how we got here. A lot of people have wondered how Justin Tipping ended up with this opportunity at Monkey Paw. And if you guys are new here, I'm going to repeat myself one more time just so that we get a very clear story, because I was trying to remember it the first time I said it. So Zach Akers and Skip Bronkus wrote the script GOAT. It was on the 2022 Black List, number 13. Okay. From there was a bidding war. Monkey Paw Productions won it. Jordan Peele had a general meeting with Justin Tipping because of his film Kicks, which I hear is good. I haven't seen it, but I heard it was good. They hit it off. And then when Jordan Peele got his hand on GOAT, he brought in Justin Tipping to direct. Therefore, Justin Tipping took a pass at the script and ended up being a co-writer. We are all on the same page about how we got here. So now let's talk about the film in itself, right? So if you are kind of new to hanging out with me when I'm talking about films, I'm not here to tell you whether it was good or bad, if I liked it or didn't like it, if you should watch it or not watch it. I'm here to talk about story. I try to be as objective as possible about what the story was doing so that you can understand, as filmmakers, as screenwriters, what kind of decisions you'll be making when you are writing. Not so much directing, because that's not my lane, but you can likely learn some things as a director, because like I said before, oftentimes it'll be your job to take a pass or at least to give notes on scripts. So, hey Des, you're new here. Welcome. So because of that, I try to be as objective as possible. Now, because I'm funny, sometimes I get subjective. Okay. But generally speaking, I'm just here to say, look, this is what we were dealing with. So let's talk about genre first. I personally didn't find this film scary. And it is in the horror thriller genre. That's what it says on the internet when you look it up. I would put it in the thriller genre. I felt that most of the horror moments were forced for me. I felt, now look, I watch a whole lot of stuff and I'm into horror. So I'm also not scared very easily. I have not been scared of a film since The Ring and Paranormal Activity. Okay. When that girl came out of that screen, I watched it at my university, and I was in a theater, not a movie theater, a theater that fits thousands of people. And they played it on a big, huge movie screen. And when that girl came out of that screen, y'all, people started jumping over their seats trying to get out of that joint. Now, I didn't jump over my seat, but I was afraid to. Okay. And in Paranormal Activity, because it felt so real, right? Those movies were scary. I didn't find this to be scary. Now, this played in the demonic like world, themes, visuals, messaging. And so a lot of people felt like, spiritually, it's not something that you should, allow in, but I'm also not someone who's easily offended or triggered. Not to say that other people are easily offended, but I don't know if it's because I take in so much content that I'm just desensitized at this point. Sorry, I know y'all got a view of my camera over there. I don't know if I'm just desensitized at this point. But I also know enough about movie tropes that if there's darkness, I'm looking back there because I know something is coming out. If there's a sound, I'm waiting on it. Like I know that it's supposed to happen. So when it comes out, it doesn't scare me because I know. That's why we're looking. That's why the camera's over there. The camera's over there because something is going to jump out, or they want me to see something that's going to go by. So because of that, I didn't find this movie scary at all. I actually had more anxiety waiting on something scary to happen than actually being afraid of what was happening. Oh yeah, Devil's Advocate. That's good. I might watch that tonight. Come on, Self-Made. I might watch The Devil's Advocate tonight. Now that is a good movie. With that being said, my story experts and I talk a lot about whether we should have people put trigger warnings on their scripts. That's not necessarily something that I need. I don't need that, but I understand that I'm different from other people. Because for me, if I read a script and I'm triggered or I get offended, then I have to ask myself why I'm triggered or offended. And then I have to ask myself if that's the writer's intention. Because if it is, great job, you did your job. If it isn't, that's the note, right? So I wasn't offended by anything in the film. I wasn't triggered by anything in the film. I didn't think God was going to take me away because of the film. And I don't think that Satan now lives in my life or my spirit because of the film. But that's me, okay? So you have to decide for yourself whether those kind of messages, etc., are going to sit on your spirit. They're not going to sit on my spirit. I left them right in the movie theater. They didn't come home with me. They didn't even leave. They didn't even go to the restroom with me. Okay. I left them right there. With that being said, I actually believe that if we removed every single horror moment, jump scare moment, weird sounds, movement in the night, moments, we would have the same movie. Those moments felt forced for me, and I didn't need them, especially because all in all, they didn't seem to connect to anything. And I'm just talking about the bumps in the night and the, ooh, something just might have walked by, or ooh, there might be something in the corner. None of that stuff ever amounted to anything. And so because it didn't amount to anything, I didn't need it. If they took it all out, it would be the same film for me. And it would still be considered a thriller. Like, to me, it was basically Any Given Sunday, but with a supernatural dude that kept coming up with a sword hitting your boy in the head. You know what I'm saying? So I just didn't feel like it needed that. I feel like it got pushed there. Now, I haven't read GOAT, so I don't know if GOAT had those kinds of horror bumps in the nights moments. I don't know. Oh, you're from Dallas? Okay, what's up? Texas in the house. I don't know if it had that. I don't know if those things got added because you're at Monkey Paw. So for those of you who know, Monkey Paw makes horror, psychological horror. You know, they kind of push a little bit in past the thriller and start to step their foot into the horror, even if it's just a little bit. And so maybe that's how we got here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's why those moments felt forced, because I just didn't need them. I thought it did enough thematically for me to get it without most of that stuff. Now, a lot of people said that there was no story here, and I just disagree. I disagree with that. I think there is a story here. I think it's a very simple story. And I'm actually one of those people who believes that the more complex your idea, the more simple your story should be. I am not an executive producer. You know what you can do? You can take a look at my link in the bio that will give you all the information about what I do. Actually, there's a description in the bio that tells you exactly what I do, but I am not an executive producer. So the more simple your theme and idea is, right, then the more complex your story can be. If you want the general public to really be able to go for the ride. And as a filmmaker, you have to make that decision, because some filmmakers are here to just ego all over the page and ego all over the screen so that only this many people understand what they're trying to do, because that makes them feel like they're very smart. Some filmmakers are making stuff so that you don't get it. And we talk about this all the time, that there is a difference between comprehension and enjoyment, right? You can comprehend something and not enjoy it. You can not comprehend something, but because the story was clear enough, it was a decent enough film for you to watch, right? But there are plenty of directors and writers who are making stuff because they don't want you to understand it. Okay, that's a choice, right? But because this is an internationally released film in theaters, that means you are trying to get the general public to come. So you have to have a simple enough story. That doesn't mean the rest can't be complex. I don't want you to hear me say people can't write complex stories. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if your messaging, your themes, and your idea are complex, then you give a simple enough story for people to follow along, whether they get the ideas and themes or not. Whether they want to critically think or not, they can still enjoy themselves. Versus you can have a very complex story, but then now your themes and all of that and your idea and all that other stuff is the thing that's simple. So that no matter what, the general public comes out and goes, oh, okay, yeah. Now, again, whether they like it or not is neither here nor there, right? So in this particular film, I think the story is simple and it is the themes that get complex. Now, again, I think they tried to be extra deep and it was unnecessary. So there were a lot of people, this is from the reviews I've read and the videos that I've seen, because it's hard to not have spoilers in 2025, but spoilers don't bother me. I don't care about spoilers. I can watch somebody's entire review and they can tell me what's going to happen from top to bottom, and that's not going to ruin my viewing experience. So this is not me saying other people didn't get it. This is me saying other people said they didn't get it. Other people said they came out and they couldn't make out what they saw or what they were trying to do. Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because for me, the story was very, very simple. Right. Especially if you think about Any Given Sunday. Like, to me, it's basically the same movie, but Any Given Sunday is just fabulous. And this movie, I didn't necessarily feel was bad. Like, a lot of people thought it was like the worst thing that's happened. I don't think it's the worst thing that has ever happened. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was fine. I thought they executed what they intended to execute. And a lot of the times that just means that the audience is going to be niche enough, and hopefully they find them, right? Because I also found a large group of people who thought that this was the best thing since sliced bread, which happens because it's subjective. But let's just go through the story beats, right? Here comes the teacher in me. Let's just go through what the story was. All right. We got clear backstory. We open up with dad, mom, and big brother pushing football onto this young boy, right? Likely he's already playing football. You can see that they worship the Saviors, which is the name of the football team, just as much as they worship God. And, you know, I don't think they worship their family, but appreciate their family. Like it's all on a mantle, right? So it's very clear. And to be honest with you, that's what a whole lot of American households look like. Like, let's be for real. I'm going to skip forward just a second, because when we have those fans that are outside of Zay's home and they're covered in paint and they look like zombies and they are a part of, you know, the horror, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what y'all look like. Y'all don't know that's what y'all look like when y'all go to these sports games and y'all be losing y'all's effing minds over people winning and losing and throwing balls up and down courts. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that's what y'all look like. That was not, thank you. I'm going to say that later, Felix. Thank you. Black Swan. Thank you. Right? Like, that's what y'all look like. That's what sports fans look like. It's not far-fetched. Sure, it's a little exaggerated because this is a horror thriller, but that's what y'all be looking like. You know what I'm saying? So that what we saw at the beginning is just your basic American family. That's what parents who want their kids to play sports act like. That's what y'all be doing. The little boy tried to turn away. He didn't want to see his idol be injured. Y'all, that bone sticking out of Marlon Wayans' leg was laughable. But anyway, the visual of it was laughable. But that's what's securing us. Like, when you open up your script, you're always supposed to open like on some social proof and on some backstory, right? And so we get the backstory very quickly, and then we go into his social proof, which is kind of hearing the announcer or the news, stations or whatever it is, as we see him in his gaming video as he's growing up and he's throwing the ball and blah, 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 blah. We're seeing that he's great at this. Now, what we never see is him play a real football game. Ever, right? But we do get social proof that he's got a fantastic arm when he's standing on the field. I believe it must be his college because it looks like a big place, but it also could be his high school because he's trying to get into the NFL. So it could have been his college, but I think it was his high school because he's out on the field and he is throwing the ball and purposefully hitting the goalpost. So we can see he's got a good eye, he's got a good arm. Boom, got the information. Social proof is there. So as I'm watching, I'm like, all right, I get it, right? We worship football. We worship the Saviors. The name of their team is Saviors, right? And they look at Isaiah, Zay, Marlon Wayans' character, as their God, right? That's their God. So all of that is set up. They even have him, I'm about to block you, person who keeps trying to come in here. The answer is no. You better be glad I don't even really know how to use this machine, okay? Stop asking. Sorry, y'all. Sometimes you have to be strict with people. You know what I'm saying? They get inconsiderate. Anyway, so then we move into it, and this part happens, and I wish that it would have been a more grounded moment. This is one of the moments when I said to myself, I wish this would have happened differently. So if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, okay? He's standing on the field. He throws the balls. They hit both of the poles purposefully. One of them is still spinning. Okay, supernatural stuff is happening right now. While he's looking at the spinning football, something supernatural shows up and hits him in the head. And from there, he's concussed. And therefore, we're supposed to consider it like CTE, blah, 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 right? Those are the themes. Those are the messages, whatever, whatever. He's going to continue to push through, even though he's got this traumatic brain injury. But I wish that would have been a grounded moment. I wish we could have seen him playing football and get hit and actually have a brain injury from that, instead of it being some supernatural thing that exists but doesn't exist that caused the brain injury. So that's like I actually was like, dang, I really wish there would have been an actual injury. You know what I'm saying? It happening from this supernatural thing, I'm going, what? Huh? And then if we follow that, because in horror films, in thrillers, you set up rules. You have to set up rules. So that thing, man, person, thing, hits him on the head at least 3 times throughout the film. But none of it ever amounts to anything. None of it means anything. Like, he doesn't get worse when he gets hit. And he's never doing anything when he gets hit. So the first time he gets hit, he's just standing there looking at a spinning football. The second time, he's just standing there in the desert or lying down. I can't remember. I think he's lying down in the desert because he's tired. And then he gets hit again. And it's like, what? And then later, even though everybody's like really concerned about this brain injury, so concerned that he doesn't participate in the combine, which is the only thing that the brain injury does for the script. Outside of that, the brain injury doesn't push the story forward. The brain injury is not stopping him from being a good player. He's still throwing that ball. He's still catching that ball. He can still run. He can still do everything. The brain injury is not stopping him from doing anything. But they're so afraid that it is going to stop him from doing something that he doesn't participate in the combine, which I understand, cause and effect. He can't participate in the combine because if he does, then he won't get a special invitation to Zay's house. He has to get a special invitation to Zay's house because that's a part of the ritual. That is the only reason he has a brain injury, which is why it's a random supernatural thing that causes it, instead of it being something more grounded, like actually playing in a football game and getting hit and dealing with what football players actually deal with. Like, y'all didn't have to make that part up. Y'all could have just, right, exactly, L. Harris budget. But the budget looked big enough. Like, sure, someone said over here, they not only played, they were mostly in one location, mostly in that home most of the time. But at the end of the day, y'all could have done a quick football game. Right? Y'all could have done a quick football game so that we can get, like, come on, if they can do a quick football game on the TV show Friday Night Lights, y'all can do a football game in this doggone movie. Let this man get hit in the head. Anyway, but so he gets hit in the head so that he can end up being at Zay's house. And then while he's there, this man cracks another man in the skull. Of course, they're wearing helmets. The other man is basically paralyzed, but what's our main character's name? I know his real name is Tyreek. What's his name? Sam, Sean, David? Somebody help me out. He's unfazed. Now he's the one, Cam. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Crystal. He's the one with the injury. Thank you, Diamond. He's the one with the injury. But it didn't affect him. Come on, man. Come on. So anyway, I say that to say, you set up these rules by having something supernatural hit him in the head, but then it doesn't really amount to anything. He doesn't get worse as he's getting hit in the head. It doesn't change his skills or anything. And then they don't use it to their advantage, right? Like, there are no real stakes there. the reason he doesn't participate in the combine is because the stakes are, if he gets out there and hurts himself further, not only can he then damage himself physically, but then he'll never get into the league. But then it doesn't really actually end up being something that stops him, right? So that was a thing. But anyway, let's get back to the story. So we have the clear goal, right? Clear goal is got to get into the league, specifically the Saviors, right? Got to get into the Saviors. That's the goal. It's very clear. The stakes are very clear. I need to make my dad proud. Internally, we always talk about this. You have to have an internal motivation that is represented by your external goal. That is done in this film. Internally, I feel guilty because I told my dad I didn't want to play football anymore. Theme. Blah. A lot of the kids don't be want to do this. Y'all be making them do it anyway. Yes, y'all. I don't have no kids, so that's why I'm saying y'all. But he tells his dad he don't want to play football no more. And then his dad dies. Now he's stuck feeling guilty. That's his internal motivation. Externally, that means I got to get in the league. So we got stakes of not letting the father down. We got stakes of carrying the whole family on your back, because that's what we also do, specifically in our community. We put everything on this one person, and that one person has to make it, and nobody else is doing anything as they're waiting on this one person to make it, right? So he's holding all of this on him. And then he's supposed to have the physical stakes of the brain injury that may actually stand in the way of him playing, but it never does. So it's not actually stakes. All right. We also get a ticking clock. Okay. He goes out to Zay's for a week. He only has a week to prove himself. So we got a ticking clock. So I'm saying all of this because it's okay to not like the movie, but to say that there's no story there is just untrue. The story is there. Whether you like the execution of it or not is a whole nother thing, but the story is there. So let's keep it moving, right? We had our inciting incident, which was the random supernatural thing hitting him in the head, which then made, him not be able to do the combine, but get invited to go to Zay's for 1 week to prove himself. So now we got a goal. I got to prove myself. That's the goal. I don't know. They didn't say if his dad tragically died, right? I don't know. They just said he died. Did they say it was tragic or not? I don't know. All right. Now we finally get to meet Zay, who is oddly an ally and an antagonist, right? And the reason I say that is because they're both dealing with daddy issues. Once we get to the house, we continue to stay active. Because again, very simple story. I got to prove myself by the end of the week, which means I got to go through these hoops, these leaps, this hazing in order to prove that I'm prepared to sacrifice myself, be the next goat. We know lambs are sacrificial, goats appear like Satan, etc. Right? So thematically, we got it. We understand what he's supposed to be doing. But also during that time, as we're watching him take steps forward and take steps back, and all of that is in being able to prove himself to Zay. So I came in here and I threw the ball really well, but then he added on this extra pressure of dang near killing somebody else while I'm doing this. And that's making me not perform as well, and therefore making this other guy, get more and more abused, right? So, okay, cool. We got the steps. We can track them. They're even telling us day 1, we're going to do this. Day 2, we're going to do that. Day 3, we're going to do that. He's being active towards his goal. All of that is happening. And then we've got emotional through lines here, right? Because as much as Zay understands it's his time to retire, it doesn't mean he wants to, which is also, again, a story. The tale is as old as time, right? He doesn't want to retire, but he knows he needs to. So that means he wants to pick the person who's going to replace him, but he also doesn't want to be replaced. So that's the reason why he is an ally and an antagonist, because he wants to be able to choose him, but at the same time, he doesn't want to step down from the throne. He doesn't want to not be seen as a god. If you notice, he always says, I'm going to go watch tape. And the one time Cam found him watching tape, he was actually just watching people applaud him from a godlike point of view. I enjoyed that part. It's like, oh, it seems like he's always preparing for work when really he's just reveling in, being worshiped. Right? So that's hard to let go of. And because it's hard to let go of, then he gets to act crazy and he gets to do crazy stuff. And some of the stuff is stupid and it doesn't make any sense. But, I can understand what's happening, whether I enjoyed the execution of it or not. Sometimes there were moments where I'm like, is this a haze? Or is this just y'all trying to push into this supernatural that doesn't make sense? So he was in, I don't know what kind of thing he was in. It wasn't a sauna. They were in a sauna later, but some kind of UV light thing he was in. I don't know, much about taking care of your body as an athlete on that level. So I don't know what this thing was that he was in, but he was in there and then he started screaming. And I think he wanted to be let out, but it didn't seem like he was stuck in there. And it didn't seem like anything was happening to him. So I had a hard time following that part, but y'all let me know what was happening. It's like out of nowhere, the music gets loud. He starts yelling. We get some cool stuff visually, but I'm like, yeah, but why? Like, what's going on? What's going on in there? And I think, again, that's why I say a lot of this horror stuff, they could have just left out. I think the themes are deep enough for us to understand. If you have seen Any Given Sunday, if you've seen Black Swan, if you pay attention to how parents push their children into sports, into entertainment, if you pay attention to how people think Beyonce is the devil, then you understand what they're trying to do in this film. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get it. I don't think they needed to do as much as they did for us to get it. Like, we get it. You know what I'm saying? So they're active towards the goal. They have a little, obviously you have to have complications along the way. They had a little, little things going on along the way, but he remained active. Cool. Then we get to the midpoint. The midpoint was definitely weird, but it existed. So again, story is there. Varsity Blues, all of those sports stories. So that's why, I get it. People are like, oh, we've never seen sports horror before. But it's like, yeah, it's just the same thing. All they did was throw some blood in there. It's no different from any of the other sports and entertainment and pageant films or whatever. It's no different, right? Thematically is, kind of the same stuff. Who is your God? Who do you serve? And are you willing to sacrifice yourself in order to serve it? Who gets to be God, right? Who is God? And who is actually, being the Geppetto of it all and pulling all of the strings. In this particular case, it's the league as a whole, the Savior's owner, and even his agent, who was basically saying, we did all of this just to get you here. Now, that part I felt was very on the nose, and I didn't think it needed to be said out loud. Like, we get it. We know. Just by the fact that the agent was allowed there, but mom wasn't, brother wasn't, girlfriend wasn't, who was gorgeous. None of them were allowed there. None of them were allowed to talk to him. They couldn't even be on the phone. But then the agent shows up to the party. Of course you're in on it. And when he goes out at the end, and we'll get to that part, but when he goes out at the end and then the agent is like, hey, we did all of this. We planned all of this. I'm like, duh, don't tell us. Come on. We're here. We know what's going on. You don't have to tell us. You don't have to spoon feed it to us. So anyway, at the midpoint, that's when the fans sneak in and get killed. Right? And what the funniest part about this movie to me, and this is how they out here doing stuff they don't have no business doing. And Zay, Marlon Wayans' character, has really surpassed being human at this point, is they are really, injuring, killing, and abusing people along the way like it ain't nothing. I mean, like they don't even talk about it. They did a whole dance over that young man who was I think he was seizing after he got hit in the head. They did a whole dance over here. So I actually would have preferred, this is just a preference, this has nothing to do with the, I don't necessarily think it made the movie good or bad, but I actually would have preferred if Tyreek would have killed her. Then there would be blood on his hands. but he doesn't. She comes back to life. It gets weird because Marlon kisses her. But yeah, if he's supposed to be God and he's supposed to be his, his disciples, then I guess that's allowed. But then he gets this supernatural strength and throws her across the room. And I was like, where'd that come from? I mean, sure, he could throw a football, but she's a lot heavier than a football. I mean, I guess they're trying to say she isn't. But he throws her across the room, she hits her head. And then later, he makes him that much more culpable by putting her inside that suit when they're out there shooting. And then Cam is the one who actually shoots her. And so at that point, we're supposed to believe he has made his turn for the bad side, right? Which is why I think I would have much preferred if he would have been the one to kill her. Because even though it would have been self-defense, the fact that he would allow himself to go that far after watching Zay be that way with other people and then making that choice as well, I thought that would have been, something that worked in his favor. But instead, Zay is the one who took her life. I mean, he's her God, so I guess he's allowed to do that. But anyway, he makes his turn to the bad side. He starts talking back to Isaiah. He shoots the lady. He goes into the photo shoots and everything. It's like, hey, he's on the other side now. And now he eventually, once he starts seeing things kind of fall apart once they get to the party, he's starting to ask himself, is this what he wants? Back to that moral dilemma word, right? Back to that moral dilemma word. So I see people on Instagram saying that Cam was inactive. Can you guys give some examples about what you felt like he should have been active towards? Because what makes you active is being active towards your goal. If his goal was to make it through this boot camp with Isaiah so that he can join the Saviors, then him showing up every day and not giving up and continuing to, participate in whatever the activities were makes him active. So what did you think his goal was? And what did you think he wasn't doing in order to reach that goal, so that we can kind of discuss why you felt like he was inactive? So let's talk about that. All right, then we get to the climax, which is highly dramatic. I appreciated, though, that our climax and resolution happened like this and we were out. I appreciated that the movie was an hour and 36 minutes long. I appreciated that. I appreciated that they did not try to drag this thing, because it didn't need to be, because again, it was a simple story. There wasn't much for Cam to be doing, because he never got to a place of not wanting to be there until the end, when he finally said, all right, I'm gonna shoot up everybody, right? Before then, he wanted to be there. So it's like, well, how many days are we actually going to see him participate in the games, like Hunger Games, right? How many days are we going to see him do that? Then they take some of the time to deal with the emotional stuff that's happening between them, to start to try to level them out, right? They start to open up to each other. So we start to learn some of Zay's emotional traumas. And there's one point where he's yelling at Cam, saying like, your father didn't want you, or something like that. And we obviously know he's talking to himself. Like, that was pretty clear, right? Let's see. Cam needed to go home first. We needed to see the contrast of his realities. You mean before he shot up everybody at the end? Somebody said I was in the parking lot by the time the credits ended. Yeah, I didn't stay through the credits. I usually do. Okay, so Chantel, you wanted him to try to escape, but he didn't want to escape. That he never got to a point where he wanted to escape. So you wanted him to want to escape. You wanted him to feel like this stuff is wrong, so I should leave, right? Let's see. Then it's spirit demons everywhere. Why not? But he doesn't see the spirit demons until the end. We see them, but he doesn't see them. He thinks this is weird, but he's also been told by his dad his whole life, no guts, no glory. This is what real men do. And now he's being told by his idol, his God, that this is what it is. And nobody else in the room is fazed. Therefore, he thinks this is what it is. Now, he's not me and he's not you. I wouldn't have been there in the first place. You know what I'm saying? But in order for the movie to happen, he has to be someone who's willing to drink the Kool-Aid, right? Like, but they didn't need to threaten his family. Like, so all of the things that you're asking for is like, yeah, but that's another movie. They didn't need to threaten his family. He already felt like this is what I have to do in order to succeed and fulfill my legacy of becoming the next God, becoming the next Zay, doing what my father told me to do. He didn't need them to threaten his family. So he didn't need any outside anything. He was dealing with everything internally, which is why eventually it ended up being him against everybody else, right? Like this had, I wanted to see his family some more because I just liked them, but I understood why they weren't there. You know what I mean? Oh, you said they did say they kill his family in the end. Um, uh, they said that at the party or something, right? Or no, did they say it while he was shooting up everybody? Like you need to sign this or they'll kill your family. Yeah, they started saying all kinds of like. I can agree with everyone that the last scene kind of felt rushed, on the nose, over the top, over dramatic. I didn't feel like it was earned. I didn't really think that he needed to kill everybody. Like once he killed Zay, I didn't even think he needed to kill Zay, but obviously you want your antagonist and your protagonist to fight. But I didn't think they needed to die. And I wish that I would have been invested enough in Cam's story. Not that I wasn't invested at all, right? But I wasn't invested enough to be rooting for him to kill Zay. I just didn't need that. Right? I didn't want Zay to kill Cam, but I also just didn't feel like they had earned the fight. I understand the fight is necessary. You can't have two gods. Somebody got to get out of here. Right? I understand that, but I didn't feel like it was earned. And then the end felt like bloodshed for the hell of bloodshed. I don't know why everybody had to die. I also don't know why old girl killed herself. Did I miss that? Didn't she stab herself? She said something like, why do I have to do everything or something, which is the plight of women. So, okay, cool. We get it. She was like, why do I always have to do everything or something like that? And then she stabbed herself in the throat. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you were going to go try to help it all. But you didn't. You just stabbed yourself. You just killed yourself. How do we get there? Yeah, so I can agree, Felix, that it was weird that mom never felt like, why can't I talk to my son? But also, the family is more indoctrinated than he is, right? They feel like you out there with your idol, you finna make it, and then we all gonna make it. And it's only a week also. So maybe they felt like, hey, whatever you got going on, we'll talk to you in a week, son. I could believe that. I can believe that because the family was so indoctrinated. Okay, let's see. Marlon should have been the one to sabotage him and attack him. I agree. Cam needed to have found this out while he was there. It all should have been set up by the team owners and Marlon. Well, it was all set up by the team owners and Marlon and Zay. But I agree that it should have been Zay trying to take. Well, I guess that's what he said, right? He was like, we have to figure out who's going to walk through the tunnel, right? They had been talking about the tunnel the whole movie. And he said, both of us can't walk through the tunnel or something like that. So I guess he was the one who brought it up. But I just felt like it wasn't earned, necessary, but not earned. And I wish, so to y'all's point, if Cam had ever gotten to a place where he was second guessing before the climax, then we might have understood why he felt like he is going to have to fight his way out of here. But his turn happened very quickly, right? Like he got more of Zay's blood, which, they had the Last Supper, if you saw it. They drank red wine, right? Which is the drinking of the body of Christ. Zay is supposed to be Christ. They keep putting his blood inside of him, but again, not tracking what that actually means for his body. So that goes back to rules. Is he getting better because he's getting Zay's blood? Is he getting worse? At the last point, they do a full blood for transfusion. So I guess we are to assume that Cam is filled more with Zay at this point than he is himself. So maybe that's the thing that turns him into being very aggressive and deciding he's going to fight Zay because of the blood of Christ? Maybe, y'all. Maybe that's what they were trying to do. Because other than that, like the doctor kept saying, like the blood is going to help you. We learned from Zay that this is not just his blood, but it's the mixture of the blood of all the goats. Speaking of goats, I expected the goats to be more literal. I expected the goat to be the demon. I expected to see hooves, going back to Paranormal Activity, right? I expected the goat to be the demon and not this weird man thing that just had on a football helmet with rams. I mean, with what are these things called? Antlers. I expected them to utilize that goat. They utilize that goat in Severance more than they utilize the goat in a film that's about a person being the goat, who's trying to be the goat from a script that used to be called Goat. I expected goats. But let's see. You know, hold on. I read that in the original script, the ending was totally different and the family was involved. There y'all go. The people who said they wanted to have family. Supposedly they were there at the end of the script. And I don't know how, you know, and we'll never know unless we're allowed to see all the different drafts of this script. We'll never know how we got here, but I can understand why people were disappointed in the ending and why it felt abrupt. And I think, to y'all's point, what some of you are trying to get at is Cam doesn't have enough of an emotional arc to prove that he would make this turn so aggressively, so quickly. After all of the things that he's seen, he saw this man getting beat up with the football. He paralyzed somebody himself. He watched Zay kiss a woman and then kill her. All of these things are happening, and none of that makes him say, you know what? I'm going to go home. Though there is a moment where he's sitting with his bag near the front door, and then the medic, I can't think of his name either. Sorry, guys. The medic comes and he basically says, like, you can't leave or something like that. And they have a conversation. But it wasn't really clear to me that he was trying to leave. I saw a bag, so I assume you're trying to leave. But I didn't, again, emotionally feel like he had made it to a place where it's like, no, I need to get out of here. So to your point about escape, he never made it to a moment of escape. So I thought it was weird for him to never get there emotionally, but then out of nowhere, after you had a bad night and you saw old boy's head, and you know, a lot of people were talking about, since it was a traumatic brain injury, that some things are real and some things aren't. I don't know what's real and what's not. At the end, he ends up killing that thing that kept hitting him in the head. So I guess those things are real. They were there. I don't know. I don't know. But I can understand why it's like, yo, what is happening at the end? And so I think, you know, just like the other movies that we talked about before, that there's a story here and the messaging is clear. But some of the execution, I think they lean, and this happens a lot when we're doing genre stuff, we lean real far into like the visuals and the images and the messaging without taking the time to prove it on the page and prove it in the characters' choices and decisions and situations. But again, what I'll say about Cam is, and this is what I got from him, from meeting him as a child, he didn't have his own brain. He was never thinking for himself. He was making all of these choices for everybody else. So I can understand how he would then get to a situation like this and not think for himself and not choose himself. You know, the wife did look like Lady Gaga. You are correct. She did. What did you make of the consistent Baphomet symbols? I didn't. I'm not really into all that stuff enough to analyze and understand what the messages mean, but I know that they were there. So I don't really have any commentary on that. That was the reason he dropped rank in the draft and ends up at his house for the ritual. The connection should have been shown, not inferred. Okay, I don't know what we're talking about anymore, because you probably said that a long time ago. I saw an article that said Steph Curry had something to do with the title change. Oh, you thought it was going to end with it all being in his head? Maybe if it had been a real injury, but since the supernatural goat guy did it, I don't know. But to your point, like, did he just murder all these people? Like, is he supposed to walk away from this and go home? Like, what is happening? Let's see. I would have been okay with. I'm sorry, y'all. It's hard for me to scroll on this thing. I would have been okay with that. Even it being shown at the end that CTE for his concussion was affecting his actions, him being shown in the coma at the end. Yeah, something. I would have loved it if they had convinced him it was all in his head. You mean after they killed him? So Jordan Peele kind of knew better, but he did nothing to help the story. All right, I don't tend to hold back, so I'm not going to hold back now. I personally believe that whatever notes were given, right, whether they came directly from Jordan Peele or not, just because his production company produced it doesn't mean that he reads every script, gives notes, etc. There are other people who work there who do the development, not the person whose name is on the door. Now, that person gets final say, but it also depends on if this is a project that they are putting all of their energy in, because they're likely making lots of projects, right? But with that being said, I think sometimes Jordan Peele movies can get lost in the sauce too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Get Out was brilliant, and I haven't thought that about any of the other movies. I think that, again, the messaging and everything becomes so complex that a lot of the times we miss out on, but is there a simple enough story for me to follow? Which is why I'm saying this movie, people are saying it's bad, but the story is there. Again, execution, whatever, but the story is there. I understand what's happening from top to bottom. All of the story beats are there. Sometimes I watch Jordan Peele movies and I don't feel the same. So could he have looked at this and given some of the notes that got us to the script that we have now? Sure. Could he have not looked at it at all and put it in the hands of the other executives and producers at Monkey Paw and whoever else that they worked with? Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we hit and sometimes we miss. And I don't think this was a total miss, because I think they did what they intended to do. Now, I don't think it's the best movie ever, and I don't plan on watching it again or anything like that, but I think they did what they intended to do. I just think that it probably would have done that much better on like a niche streamer, where it could find its audience. Like, people who are into this kind of stuff loved it. But this is what happens, y'all. Let's just tell the truth. Y'all heard Jordan Peele and y'all heard Marlon Wayans, and Black people were like, "Ooh, I'm gonna go watch it." But that doesn't mean it was for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are likely not the audience. And I don't mean Black people weren't the audience. I mean you in particular, right? You might not have been the audience for this film. I'm not the audience for this film. The only reason I went to go watch it is so we could have this conversation right here. That's the only reason I went. And I probably would have wanted to see Marlon Wayans because I like him as an actor. So I probably would have watched it, but not because this particular kind of film is for me. Hey, Tiffany. Not because this kind of film is for me. You know what I'm saying? And so I think we have to consider that as well. It's like when they did the remake of what's the name of this doggone thing? It was a TV show, and then they turned it into a cartoon. Y'all know what I'm talking about? What's the name of that show? Good Times, right? If they had not called it Good Times and just made a cartoon and put it in a place where people who like that kind of stuff would watch it, they wouldn't have had as much backlash, right? Like, it's all about audience. And we talk about that a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's all about audience. And I think that this thing having this international reach is kind of misrepresenting that it's for a wide audience. But at the end of the day, that's what happens. Sometimes things go to the theaters and they don't do well. And like Marlon Wayans said, he put out a statement that said, almost all of his movies have gotten bad reviews, but they end up becoming classics. Now, I don't think this is going to become a classic, but I do think that depending upon where it goes, once it leaves the theaters, that it might find its audience. You know what I'm saying? I think it might find its people then. Okay, let me see if there's anything that I missed in my notes, and then I'll open it up for questions, or I'll try to follow along as much as I can. We talked about that. We talked about what's the effects of Isaiah's blood. That's going back to like rules. What are the rules of the brain injury? What are the rules when he gets hit in the head, by this being? What are the rules when he gets new blood? We talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about that. All right, let's talk about the themes. We kind of talked about them already, but let's talk about it. We talked about we didn't talk about this. Never meet your heroes. How do y'all feel about that? Never meet your heroes. That's like a big thing that we hear people say all the time. Never meet your heroes. Willie beaming. Hey, I always tell people I like my showers steaming, Willie beaming. And if you know, you know. Okay. So never meet your heroes is definitely a theme there. We also get, which we understand about sports, specifically football, we get this slavery ownership auction block kind of thing going on, right? When he first gets to Zay's, because he doesn't do this in the combine because he doesn't participate. But when he first gets to Zay's, baby, they strip him down, top to bottom, and measure him, just like they used to do on the auction block. All right. Then we get faith family football. Somebody asked me about how I felt about that. And I felt like, yeah, first of all, Friday Night Lights is the best thing that ever happened to television. Okay. So if you haven't heard of God, family, and football, some people say faith family football, some people say God family football. And I'm from Texas. Okay. So I already know how faith family football works. And Zay made it very clear that for him, it's football, family, God. And I think that was another kind of moral dilemma for Cam. Cam, even though he had Jesus around his neck, never really showed any Christian values, right? Like we assumed he was a Christian simply because of the things that were in his house and the thing that's around his neck. But it didn't seem like he was ever grappling with where God should be in the list. To me, it seemed like family and football for him. And if nothing else, the idea of being a God, but not his relationship with God, if that makes sense. Zay was very clear, God's on the bottom. But for Cam, we never really got his point of view on how he feels about God at all. We know that he looked up to Zay, but by the time he got there and was really dealing with him, he was grappling with like, this is the person who I have kind of put up on this pedestal and it's being knocked down as I go. I'm losing respect, if nothing else. Like he might not have been getting afraid of him, but he definitely was losing respect for him along the way. Then we got hazing. We talked about that. We talked about families pushing sports on children. We talked about the danger of the game, because even though Cam wasn't getting any worse at his game and wasn't getting any real injuries, other people were getting messed up in the game. My goodness. We talked about the Last Supper press conference, which I thought was a beautifully visual moment. So somebody else said the cinematography was great. Like the visuals were great. Some of them were unnecessary, but they were great. That Last Supper was fan-freaking-tastic. It was like, see, all I needed was one of those here and there. I didn't really need all the rest of it, right? One of these moments here and there, and it's like, yeah, boom, bow. You know what? I'm going to go watch The Devil's Advocate and Any Given Sunday this week, maybe tonight, maybe as soon as I get off of here with y'all. I talked about how I expected there to be an actual, like, more of the GOAT to be for our demons, because I also wanted to know, because Cam started to see these demons before he came in contact with Zay, because it happens on the football field before the combine. And so I'm wondering, what were his internal demons? Why were demons after him? And if the league set this all up, his agent, everybody set this all up, y'all told that random spirit to go hit him in the head that day, and it's like, okay, sure, if you want me to believe that, but like, I think, again, going with rules, had his visions of seeing supernatural beings getting hit in the head, all of that, like, had that happened once Zay, his God, had come into his life to then start showing the dangers of it, then I might have like rolled with a little bit more. But since it started happening before, it just made me want at that moment. It made me want that moment to be more grounded. It made me want him to actually have a brain injury on the field and not something that was caused by a supernatural element. I expected him to have real demons. Yeah, but he was only traumatized about telling his father he didn't want to play football. He didn't have, not to say that's not a real trauma. Everybody's trauma is real, no matter how big or how small. I just expected it to be a bigger demon so that those demons that we saw around him weren't just about God/Satan, because obviously Zay is the God, but he acts like Satan. So these are his demons and his minions. But I wanted Cam to have some of his own that he had to fight, so that really fighting Zay is fighting himself. You know what I'm saying? I think I would have appreciated that. Okay, I think I got through all of my notes, and it's been an hour, so we did a good job. All right, let's see. Let's see. I watched people say the final scene reminded them of a Mandingo fight. Any thoughts? No, I don't know enough about Mandingo fights to have a thought about that. Okay, somebody said the last one. Yeah, I could get with that the last scene felt more like Spartacus. I could get with that. It definitely felt like, hey guys, let's have some fun with cinematography. Right? Like, hey guys, let's just have some fun. That's what it felt like. It felt like we're going to throw story out of the window for this last scene. Let's just have some fun. We are Sparta, this moment. Like, even when they kept doing like the skeletons, right? Like the X-ray kind of visuals. It's like, that's cool, but I'm not seeing no bones break, and that's not a real head injury. So what do I need that view for? You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you're going to do it, use it. Use it. Do you think this should have been based on a book? No. I want original screenplays. No. Not to say that things can't be based on books, but I'm over it. There are screenwriters out there with original ideas, and they should have an opportunity to get their films made instead of it always having to be based on some already established IP like a book. So no, I'm glad this was an original screenplay that came from the Blacklist. Okay, let's see. Let me go back. The assault in the beginning threw me off so bad. The assault. Which assault are we talking about? You talking about him getting hit in the head? Or was there another assault that I'm not remembering? I didn't think it was really a spirit so much as it was the dude who was in the spirit costume at the end. Yes, but every other time he just popped up out of nowhere. So is he real or is he not? So at the end, he was real because he got killed. But those other two times, he literally would just like, boop. What's that superpower called when you can just pop into anywhere? What's that called? I can't remember. That's what he was doing. I'm like, oh, so is he real or not? Yeah, original screenplays are having a good year. I don't remember the numbers, but they're teleport. Thank you. He was teleporting. Does that happen in this world? I mean, I guess if he was supposed to be real, but I don't think so. I think what happened was he's not real, and in the end, they just decided to make him real. I think they were like, oh, people won't care. We'll have him teleporting because he's not real. He's supernatural. That's what makes it scary. If he was real, then it wouldn't have been scary, right? So he's supernatural. So we're just going to let him teleport in and teleport out. And in the end, though, we need Cam to be able to fight back so he doesn't get hit in the head again, even though getting hit in the head never harmed him, ever. But now we're just going to make him real because people they not gonna care. That's how it felt to me. I'm not saying that's what it was, but that's how it felt. I haven't done my breakdown on the girlfriend yet. I need to remember to do that. When he was killed, everyone at the end, was that supposed, when he killed everyone at the end, was that supposed to be some kind of death to his dream and his father's priming? I think so. That was him choosing himself. That was him choosing to not go into the system of the NFL. That was him choosing not to be bought, not to be sold. That was him choosing himself, even in my opinion, over family, because his family was the one that was pushing him to be in football in the first place, because he said out loud to his daddy, I don't want to do this. So I think that was choosing himself. Now, why everybody had to die, I still don't know. I don't know. But that was definitely him making that choice. What are you willing to sacrifice? Everybody but me, bro. And I'm with it. I'm with it. If it's going to be between the two of us, I'm sacrificing you. What's that story in the Bible where God tells him he has to sacrifice his son, child? And then he's like, okay, cool, I'm going to do it. And then God say, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do it. And then he blesses him because he was going to listen. All right, let's see. Okay. Yes, the writers are writing. We're writing. Diamond said, I thought he was a mascot. I think he was, Diamond. I think he was. They said they assaulted him to isolate him. But who assaulted who? I think I forgot, y'all. Who assaulted somebody? What was the point of the chapters if we never moved in the story? Well, I think we moved in the story. I just think there wasn't far to move. So it's like we were inching through, because it's only a week of playing. I mean, like, think about boot camp for real. You know what I'm saying? I think they were a little literal with it, right? So if I'm going to boot camp every day, I'm doing something different in boot camp. And I think they were just telling us about it and then inching very slowly through it until they got to the end. And I guess it was 5 days. They said a week, but I think it was only 5 days. I don't think we got to 7, right? I also felt like the end of the boot camp, like the walking through the tunnel, I thought that came, pretty quickly. I was like, oh, wait, seems like we jumped in time, which was fine, because I didn't necessarily need to see every day like they did it. But again, because they made it such a simple story and there was really nothing else for them to be doing, I can understand why they ended up, once they got to the midpoint, they kind of stayed in a more emotional place than a physical activity place of him throwing the ball and stuff and getting hit and stuff. And then they just said, okay, we're done with this movie. And they went into the climax and resolution. Yeah, I felt like it was supposed to be 7, but I think it was only 5. I only remember 5 coming up on the screen. Did 7 come up on the screen? I think it was only 5, but child, I don't know. Yes, teleport. That was the word. Give the rating of this movie. I don't know. I'd give it a 5-6, because I think it intended to do what it wanted to do, and people just didn't enjoy it. And I think that's okay. I think that that's an unfair rating on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Like, not to bring back up highest to lowest, but how did highest to lowest get 80-something%, but this got 20-something? I think that's a little ridiculous. But at the end of the day, it's all subjective. It's all subjective. So the people who watched it didn't enjoy it, so they rated it low. That's fine. Just FYI, the people who give the Rotten Tomato scores are just regular people. Like, they're not necessarily industry people who they are paying to go to the movies to watch things and then give a score based on their experience or expertise. They are people who watch films on their own volition and then go on there and give their ratings. And then they have a tomato reader, and then they have the popcorn reader. And so there's 2 different kinds of readers. But I say that to say ratings, not readers. Sorry. So I say that to say that these aren't necessarily film critics, even if they call themselves film critics. So they gave it 28% because that's how they felt. Okay. But that would make it like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. And I just think that's too low. I really don't think it's a 2 or 3 out of 10. I would give highest to lowest a 3 or 4 out of 10. Highest to lowest gave me, Tyler Perry. And I say that based on soap. like it was very soapy in that way, and the story was all over the place. We already went through it, so I'm not going to go through that here. So I was just surprised when I saw that Rotten Tomatoes score. Like, dang. Now, with that being said, because I had already seen all the low scores, and because I had already seen a lot of reviews and blah, 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 my expectations were on the floor. And so that might be the other reason why I came out like, okay, all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, it wasn't the best thing, but I was like 28%. Like, come on. It wasn't that bad. Let's see. The people that didn't care were the ones that thought Peele directed this. A lot of people thought that. CT is alluded to. There was enough story for a feature, so we got those unnecessary. Yeah, and it was, absolutely. It definitely could have used some more content. Like the scope of it probably could have given us like a 75-minute film. And so 15 minutes of that is just visuals. You know what I'm saying? Sounded like a lot of ideas, but zero connection for the audience. Right. And so those people who really get into analyzing messages and symbols and, that kind of stuff, then they loved it. Conspiracy theory kind of people who are like, oh, yeah, so this means that and this means that. Like, they loved it, right? People who were going for just entertainment didn't. And people who are going for, someone like me who's like, I'm a movie watcher, so I'm going because I want to see a good movie. You're going to come out disappointed as well. Like, again, my disappointment meter isn't as low because I feel like I was prepared. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I'm not going to go out and holler from the rooftops, y'all need to go see this movie. No. But if you have not seen Magazine Dreams, you need to go see that movie. Talk about a fan-freaking-tastic movie. 2025 hasn't been doing too well for us, but we haven't had a whole lot of good movies in a long time. Blue Bayou is also a very good movie. And guess what, y'all? Let me get his name so I can make sure I tell it to y'all correctly. Hold on, because I am so excited about this. What's his name? No. Justin Chon. Do you guys know who Justin Chon is? If you watched the Twilight Saga, he was the Asian kid who was taking pictures. Do y'all remember him? Y'all, he is the writer-director of this film called Blue Bayou, and it is freaking awesome. Now, the reason that I'm bringing it right now is because the writer-director of Magazine Dreams, which is also an awesome film, is teaming up with the writer-director of Blue Bayou. They're going to do something together, and I am so freaking excited about it. So excited. I got to get my expectations down, though, because I don't want to be disappointed. But also, let me say this. Did you know that the writer-director of Magazine Dreams, let me get his name, Elijah Bynum, is also one of the writers on, what's the name of that movie? What's the name of that Lee Daniels movie, y'all, that came out? The Deliverance. Did y'all know that he was also one of the writers on The Deliverance? Yes, Justin Chon stars in it too. He looks totally different, but yes. So I say that to say, you can write on a movie that doesn't do very well. Now, he is one of the additional writers. So he didn't write, it doesn't look like he wrote the original thing. It doesn't look like they wrote it together. I don't know who took which pass first, but excuse me, all of the dramatic beats that are in the Deliverance are decent dramatic beats. I remember one of my biggest critiques of the Deliverance was all of the horror stuff didn't work. Right? But the emotional through lines, the family stuff, the grounded stuff that was there was some stuff there. It was all the rest of it that was like, woo, this is a terrible movie, right? But I say that to say that same writer did magazine dreams. So look, you're gonna have a hit, you're gonna have a miss. What you want is for somebody to give you the opportunity to hit even after you miss. And so I'm excited that Elijah Bynum and Justin Chon are gonna work together. I don't know. Oh, I do know what it is. Can I remember what it is? It's something sci-fi. I don't remember any of the other details, but it's something sci-fi. And I'm excited about it. All right, y'all. So that is it for me on my thoughts on him. I will take a couple of questions from each platform and then we're out. So, yeah, the point is to have an opportunity, Stephanie. That's what we all want. We all want the opportunity. So, YouTube, do y'all have a question? Drop it in the comments. TikTok, anybody have a question? Drop it in the comments. Instagram, y'all always have questions. So anybody have a question, drop it in the comments. Okay, when a well-written script, this is y'all's one, Instagram. When a well-written script fails on the visual and editing side, or even flops at the theater, does this reflect on the writer? The answer is no, but you have to take everything with a grain of salt and know that everybody's journey is different. You know, it just depends. The writer is not the person who is who takes the blame for visuals. That doesn't have anything to do with them. It's about story. However, when that script gets into the director's hands, it becomes a totally different story. Then when it gets into the editor's hands, it becomes a totally different story. Anybody in the industry understands that, right? So you always hear people say that there are several different products, right? Several different versions of the story along the way. And one is the one that you wrote. One is the one that the director, actually directed and got produced, put through production. And then the other one is what comes out of the edit. And so because of that, that's one of the main reasons why I'm always telling writers, unless you want to be a director or producer, making a short film does not help you. When you apply to the film festival, they don't even ask your name. They want to know who directed it. They don't even ask who the writer is. They don't even ask. They want to know who directed it. Right? So I say that to say it doesn't stop a writer from working. What writers need are credits, which is the other reason why I'm saying all the time when people are like, receiving feedback from people or they want to work with people. And the first thing they say is, well, what are your credits? Yo, being a writer is such a tough thing in this industry that people could have written a million things that never get produced, but they sell a lot. They could have written a million things that get produced, but don't do well. But it's those credits, right? It's the contracts, it's the checks that make them a working writer. But at the end of the day, keeping all of your, yeah, girl, go ahead, book an appointment on the website, www.theprofessionalpen.com. If you just want to talk to me about your story, that's an option, guys. You don't have to have a script yet. We can brainstorm together. If you have a script, you can submit a full script. You can get notes on the script. We can talk about the script. But if you just want to get on the phone to just talk about like your career or what you have going on or what's going on with your story, like we can do that. That's an option. It's on the website. We call them story jams. It's a jam session. But anyway, your networking in this industry is the thing that's going to keep you writing. I mean, keep you booking. So even if you make a movie and it's not that great or it ends up not being that great, it's really about, what networking were you doing when the first deadline article came out to say that you wrote the thing? Don't wait until it does terribly. That's what I can't think of the young man's name anymore because we passed it. But that's what happened on Highest to Lowest. Once people realized, hey, it's me who wrote this script that is now in the hands of Denzel Washington and Spike Lee, that's when you get your next job. That's when you get your next job. You don't get your next job when the ratings come out. You get your next job when the deadline article comes out. That's when your phone starts ringing. You already writing your next film by the time that movie makes it to the screen and it did terribly. All right. I don't see any other questions. So if there aren't any, I'm going to hop out. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you on TikTok. I know I don't do this often over here, so y'all aren't used to it, but I appreciate y'all come and hang out. Thank you on YouTube. YouTube had the highest number of people here. What's up? Go YouTube. TikTok had the most comments. Not TikTok, sorry. This is Instagram over here. Instagram had the most comments. You guys are always very, very engaged. So thank you guys for being here. Until next time, happy writing. All right, let's see. Let's go to this one. Saying goodbye to Instagram first. Bye, y'all. All right, saying goodbye to YouTube. Bye, y'all. And now